Hey everybody, today I have another special guest with me in the form of Max Walker-Silverman, who is the writer and director of the upcoming drama Rebuilding, which tells the tale of a rancher who has to move to a trailer park after a devastating wildfire destroys his entire ranch, where he must confront his estranged daughter and estranged ex-wife. Max, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Very happy to talk to you.
Now, first, I'd like to get it out of the way. I had the privilege of watching Rebuilding, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I very much loved Josh O'Connor's performance, as well as Lily Latour and what's her face? Amy Magdan, who recently was in Weapons playing Gladys. Obviously, my first question for you will be where'd the inspiration for this come from, and was it partially inspired by your short film, Lefty Righty?
Um, yeah, the most basic inspiration of it, I think, was this sort of like core question we all face somehow of like, can the world be okay, and can I be okay living in it? And what does the future hold, which are kind of hard questions. But the movie was kind of like effort to imagine things being all right somehow and beautiful and not through their not being hardship, but rather through like finding some hope in the sort of amazing things that can come out of humans in the wake of hardship. And specifically, this was inspired by my grandma's house burning down in a wildfire. And
Hmm.
sort of the immediacy of that tragedy, but then a much longer term sort of like fascinating witness of recovery, I guess, both natural and human. And the film is sort of like a little folk tale playing with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I do, I my family lives in California, and with what happened towards the start of the year, I know a lot of people personally who had their homes burned down, and there's a scene in the movie which Josh's character discusses, with everyone else at the trailer park area, what are things that we lost? And he says, uh, he's like, something that I fear that I lost is the things that I forgot. And I really love the more somber, meditorial take on memory and loss, because when you lose your home, you don't just lose things, you in a sense, kind of lose memories. And I loved how this was sort of an inward fight to not lose those those memories. And one thing I'd really love to praise about your film, uh, other than Josh O'Connor, which we will get into, is a lot of the practicality that is seen with it. You have large spanning shots of burnt forestry, and even burnt land. And I'm wondering, were you able to secure, you know, a shooting permit for some of these areas? I'm wondering, where did you shoot it, and how did you find these locations?
Well, you know, fortunately for the movie and kind of sadly for plenty of the forest of the world, it's not too hard to find burns in the rural West. I live and work in Colorado, and we there's there's been quite a few. We wound up shooting this particular burn was off of Levita Pass. At the time, it was the largest burn in Colorado history. That record has since been surpassed many times, I think. What was interesting is that by the time we got into the forest and were filming there, its rebirth was well underway. And so the real challenge of it was not, um, finding the burn. It was sort of like hiding all the aspen trees that were coming back. And that was kind of, challenging at times and even annoying, but of course, quite lovely to see.
I think that is somewhat a level of irony that I can't help but laugh at, simply
Yeah,
because you're like, oh, we need to find death. Oh, there was a lot of life here.
yeah, that's exactly right.
But there were so many like beautiful shots of devastation that were pilferated throughout the movie. So to it is both interesting and a little upsetting that it's like it wasn't that hard to actually, go and find these things. Um, but overall, I do think that atmosphere helps with the sort of tone of the film, which is, like I mentioned before, very somber. And moving along with that line of questioning, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, which is Josh O'Connor, who has seen a very slow but very understandable rise in fame with films such as Challengers, Wake Up Dead Man, The Mastermind, and The History of Sound, all coming out within, less than a year of each other. So, what was it like working with him? And did you find any difficulties, or was it just a matter of you two clicked the moment you met?
It's lovely. I mean, he's just, anyone you talk to will confirm this, I think, just like a truly sweet man. Which is more than just a like nice thing. It's like a critical skill, especially making these kinds of films that are so sort of community based and isolated. Like you really need that sort of character at the middle of it. And um, I knew from his work in movies like God's Own Country and working with La Chimera that he'd be familiar with this sort of setup and working with non-actors. And we really bonded over the themes of the story and like the ecology of it, which was profound because even though he's from a very different part of the world, it meant something to see that this was like resonant, and that it felt real, even though the setting was quite different. And he's good, like, and you need that level of craft and that level of skill to make a character feel real and compelling, even though in this case he's playing someone who's been stripped of everything that defines him, like, and that's a real challenge for an actor with um there's very little to do physically, there's very little dialogue, and so how do you make a character inhabited and important, and it takes a really good actor. So um yeah, very happy to have worked with Josh.
And his performance isn't really the only spectacular one to be found within the film. You had Lily Latour, who played Callie Rose, who I'm guessing she was what, 5'6" when you cast her in the movie, and you even have Amy Madigan, who played Bess. Um, you know, Two very integral characters who both bring a level of quiet, kind of similar to Josh's character, like a quiet somberness to their respective roles. But first, let's get into Lily. What was it like working with her? Like, usually when it comes to child actors, sometimes it can be quite difficult, and it seems with a role like this, it was quite effortless for her. Well, can you elaborate?
I mean, Lily is a pro. Like she's just an excellent actor. She's from Australia, believe it or not. But like grew up in a small town with dogs and chickens and like a life that felt very close to mine, I think, and a nice family. And she'd never been to the United States before. And I asked her, I was like, wow, do you want to come to this movie in a place you've never been? And she said, well, yeah. It's just like driving to go see my grandma and going through everything that's burned. Um, And yeah, just like smart, prepared. We all kind of had like up our games to work with her. Um, yeah, really, really, really cool cat, Lily.
And what about with working with Amy? Despite the fact that her screen time is rather on the limited side, and mainly because I'm sure she was busy with a couple other projects that have released this year. She has a couple very powerful scenes within the film, and I'm sure you know which ones I'm referring to. But what was it like working with her? And did you find yourself at odds, or was it just like, same with Lily and same with Joss, where it's just kind of everything kind of fell into place?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big honor, first of all, just because she's, an icon, in my opinion, and particularly special, for a role like this, where you need someone who can like bring so much in a very efficient manner, I guess, because they're not necessarily going to be there like through the entirety of the film. Um, and that takes like a great uh, a great personality and a great actor, and a great like presence, I think, more than anything, to like be memorable, to be meaningful, um, not just like perhaps not just like despite their fleetingness, but in some way because of it. So so it was cool, it was like she came out and like, yeah, wow, there's Amy Madigan, and she was like particularly lovely with Lily. The two of them had like a really, really sweet bond. Great honor. Yeah.
No, and it's ironic that you framed it that way because her character is, the grandmother type character, and a lot of what you just mentioned is actually integral to her role within the confines of the movie. And I honestly, I can't praise you enough for how you juggled most of these plot lines because every character, both main, supporting, and side, feel like they have their own worlds that they're living through and their own stories that can even occur off camera. And nothing ever felt shoehorned in. Nothing ever felt superfluous by any means. And, at least from a writing perspective, because, this you did both write and direct this. How many drafts did you have to go through before you got to, what wound up being shot?
Huh. I I don't remember exactly. I mean, I'm always interested when people can like list a number of drafts as if there's like some clean way to enumerate that. I just like find myself tinkering on the thing kind of like all the time, and it's sort of just constantly changing and amorphous. I wouldn't know how to draw those sorts of distinctions. But not too long is the truth. Like I think was working the script for a year or so, which is pretty quick. But I do think of it kind of as like a children's book. I've come to believe, and what I mean by that is like I what I like about those sorts of stories is that you can kind of ideally, hopefully, you can trust that each character will play their part. Um, and it could be a small part, it could be a big one, but like there's going to be meaning to it somehow. And that, like I want to believe that all of us in our lives like have a part to play, somehow. And so I like art that reflects that, and that is how I think about all the characters. So I hope so. That's like high praise if you believe like there's a whole other story there. And I like, of course, there's infinite stories and everyone has one. So I do hope that's how it would come across.
And it does. It really, really does. And I think, the best way I can describe your film is something more of akin to like a Chloe Zhao film, like with the cowboy or I think the writer and Nomadland, where everything feels so legitimate and so real that even if you were to turn off the movie or even turn off watching our main character's story, if you turned it back on, you feel like you can just get that these are real people living their lives. And even after, the credits roll, you know that, their story doesn't really end, and there's a life that continues on. And I think that does, I'm trying to, praise your work because it is, I feel with realness, with the realization of some of these characters comes a level of attachment that the audience can resonate with. And having a film like this set in small town America, um, I think will do wonders for how this movie is presented to everyone. Which, by the way, releases on October 24th, 2025. Just had to put that in there, everybody. But I guess there's a lot more I would love to discuss with you about this movie, as I think there's so many interesting aspects to dissect. But I know you're very busy, and I don't want to take up any more of your time.
All good.
But I do think my last question for you would essentially be, what do you hope that the audience will take away from Rebuilding? Maybe not just as a movie, but as a story.
Um, I don't know. This is very hard for me. I would love to find a way to phrase this that's like not too silly or cliche, but like perhaps there's no avoiding it. Um, I don't know. What the loveliest thing that I think art can give us, or at least that it's given me, is like I, the only word that really comes to mind is beauty, like a sense of beauty, and that distills into like a sentence of like, oh, that was beautiful, but also at its most effective, um, kind of like trickles into the rest of your day after you've seen something, and like the world looks a little prettier and a little richer, and or the things you remember have like there's like a little loveliness to it, and a little niceness. So that's it. I hope it makes the day like a little more colorful. That's like truly the greatest thing I could hope.
Hey, that's not cheesy at all.
It's a little cheesy.
It's okay, fine. It's a little cheesy,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's sincere and it's honest. And I think that perfectly encapsulates Rebuilding as a movie. It's sincere and it's honest. It doesn't try to sugarcoat anything, you know? And I'm glad that the man that is talking about his film is a clear reflection of his art and vice versa. And also, I'd like to make a small correction. The movie does not release October 24th. It does release November 14th. Is that correct?
That's correct. November 14th in New York, November 21st expansion.
All right. I just like to clarify that, and apologies for that mistake. But without taking up any more of your time, because unfortunately that's all the time that I have with you for today. Max, I sincerely appreciate you giving me your time to talk about your film. To everyone watching, tickets and more information about it will be in the comment section and description below. Please, 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 please go see Rebuilding as soon as you can. It is a film that I think you shouldn't miss. And on that note, Max, thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You as well, Noah. Thank you very much.